As we pick up with the next set of issues of Doom Patrol, we have Joshua and Dorothy walking down Danny the street, catching each other up on their perspectives of the recent situation. As Joshua sees it, Flex's powers are not that dissimilar to Dorothy's. Dorothy objects a little, but this is when they run into Dolores Watson, and all that she asks is to see Flex Mentallo. Dolores gets escorted to the Doom Patrol headquarters, and she greets Flex in the way you would assume two people in a relationship would after not seeing each other for years. That being very distant at first, but as they make conversation, she reveals that she has his old superhero costume on hand. As he dons his old costume, he tries to activate his flexing powers, but he is unsuccessful. And as he loses his confidence, he asks out loud, will he be able to fight the men from nowhere in his current state? When Dolores screams out that she can't deceive him anymore, she stands back and states that the men from nowhere sent her to track and pinpoint Flex's location. Instantly, she starts withering away to dust. Now, this crushes Flex. At this point, he again is feeling at his lowest when he immediately is greeted from two of the men from nowhere. So if everyone wasn't already on high alert, they are now. Dr. Calder shoots a rocket from his wheelchair and Joshua shoots out his own energy projectiles, but that does very little to stop the two agents who seem to have shown up out of nowhere. The agents throw a smoke bomb and abduct Dorothy in the confusion, and Flex angrily shouts to take him instead. So they somewhat oblige and take him too. This just leaves Joshua and Dr. Calder to fight the last agent. They are caught by surprise in the smoke cloud, and Dr. Calder is almost hit by a mortal blow when the rest of the Doom Patrol and one alien are back from space. If you want to know more about what they're doing in space, comment below and I'll go over that story arc I skipped. But at this moment, that is not what the important question is. The important question is, who are the men from nowhere? Where did they come from? And why is the Pentagon the shape that it is? Have you ever wondered that? Sergeant Washington has been wondering that for some time, and he asked Major Honey that very same question on his first day at his new station, a few levels under the Pentagon. As they declined in the elevator, the two men introduced themselves to each other. The first level, the Deja Vu room, is where their standard operations are devised. And as they gaze into the Kabbalah and listen to the secrets of the future, a supernatural roulette game that tells you the answers to your questions, except if that question is, why is the Pentagon the shape it is? But there are some questions you can get the answer to, like how this whole program started back in 1943 to contain an avatar that was summoned back in 1875 when the first phone call was made. Nobody knows for sure what the creature looks like. There was once a switchboard operator who claimed that he saw it, but that's all conjecture. Some say that these sub-basement levels of the Pentagon were made to contain it. What we do know is after World War II, the military potential of the dead was being questioned. So, what would happen if you were to recycle the dead bodies of deceased soldiers? You see, when a person passes, their higher self ascends to the spirit plane, and their lower self, the astral husk, descends to the abode of shells. These are called the astral worm casts. They are all that remains of the human personality and desires. They pick these casts out of the abode of shells with the silver sugar tongues. These are of grave importance to the people of the Pentagon, and the last agent to use them was Mr. Jones from our Danny the Street video. He was expelled in 1955. However, he was recently recaptured by the men from nowhere and transported to the ant farm against his will. The question still remains, where are the men from nowhere actually from? And what purpose do they serve? Well, with the silver sugar tongues, these government agents capture the astral worm casts and bring them to the ant farm. That is where these casts are reconditioned and put into the bodies of deceased soldiers. This is when they finally don the name, the men from nowhere. They are made to become part of the ant farm mechanism. They spend years as cogs in the machine. This is when the Major introduces Sergeant Washington to Mr. Sage. Mr. Sage is currently in a containment cell for a specific brand of power. He helps generate many of the devices that the Men of Nowhere use, such as the smoke bomb that I mentioned a little while ago. He has very similar power set to Dorothy. He can create tangible objects and creatures with his psychic powers. He is the man, as the Major puts it, that is responsible for the creation of Flex Mentallo. As we jump back to some of our Doom Patrol members, we see Dorothy and Flex currently in the clutches of two of the Men from Nowhere as they speak to the Kabbalah to inform them on what to do with their current captives. It instructs them to escort our heroes down a corridor to be greeted by Major Honey. Major Honey then continues the story that he was telling to Sergeant Washington, and we finally get the answer to why the Pentagon is the shape it is. It was built on top of the remains of an older structure as a spirit tap, a sort of lens that would focus the energy from another reality. This same reality is where the Avatar appeared from. The same energy that they used to power the Men from Nowhere, this is also the same energy that the Bureau of Normalcy will use to exterminate all eccentricities from this world. Their plan is to make a perfect world, a world without quirks. To do this, they need to power two powerful psychics and channel them through the pentagram, through the Avatar, and through the phone system. And that's when we learn Flex's role in this. Flex is actually a psychic projection made tangible and sentient by Mr. Sage many years ago. And when this was done, Mr. Sage put a majority of his psychic powers into Flex. So in theory, once Flex is returned to his creator, then Major Honey will have enough psychic powers in his reservoir to proceed with his plan. And this is when we see it. The ant farm. A giant, ever-growing supernatural switchboard, and the operators who manage it day in and day out. They're integral for the next phase of Honey's plan, and so he hands off Flex and Dorothy to them. When the Major is a good distance away, the two of them use this opportunity to escape and run straight for the containment cell that Mr. Sage was put into. When Flex opens up the cell and pulls Mr. Sage out, the switchboard operators are alerted of their presence, and Mr. Sage is in no condition to move. He looks as if he was kept alive by the various tubes that were plugged into him, so as quickly as he was here, he's gone. Sage dies and passes on whatever remaining psychic power he has to Flex. Once again, he is the hero of the beach, and he flexes. He pushes back the Men from Nowhere. However, one of them is able to scramble all the way to the switchboard in order to summon the Avatar. A giant rotary phone with cords wrapped tautly to make appendages and claws at the tip of its fingers. As it prepares to prey on Flex and Dorothy, Robot Man crashes in. Unfortunately, as the pattern is with Robot Man, he is defeated easily, this time with an energy blast from a rotary dialer. Fortunately, the rest of the Doom Patrol is here, and Crazy Jane, or Flaming Katie if you ask her, is in possession of the silver sugar tongs. As she melts them to liquid, the Men from Nowhere let out a painful shriek and collapse to the floor, one by one. At the same time, Flex is flexing to the point to cause an aneurysm. As the Avatar also lets out a shriek in pain, he says his final goodbyes to Dolores. But what is he doing? Wonders Dorothy. The Men from Nowhere are collapsing and the silver sugar tongs are gone. What could he be doing short of making the Avatar disappear? And that's when it happens. He changes the Pentagon to a circle. Check back to our History of Flex video for more details on this. Now, with the Pentagon shaped as a circle, it no longer has the 5-pointed pentagram that was used to stabilize a connection to the Avatar. It was weakened, just enough for Dorothy to kill, as Flex tries to explain. But she's too afraid. She'll go crazy trying to defeat that thing. She'll go even crazier if it puts its two phones that it pulled off the side of its head onto her ears. She'll be digesting every phone conversation ever made at the same time. With so many voices in her head, she'll go crazy. She already has enough voices in her head, says the candle. She has a voice that helped her with the Mueller child. And don't forget that pesky white bandage. And he will help her again, if that's what she wants. He will help save her friends, but only if she wishes. She knows that if she lets the light in this time, it'll come back brighter and brighter until his light consumes her. She knows that. All she has to do is make a wish, and she blows out the candle, and her wish is granted. Nice. All right. So yeah, that is the Doom Patrol video about the Bureau of Normalcy. So the next video that we got is the Beard Hunter. So it's a little out of order from what's going on the TV show, but I'm pretty excited. We're picking up with issue number 45. So if you guys like it, comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll catch you later.